Most bankers aren't ready to help you until after their third cup of coffee. But with Central National Bank's after-hours service, you don't have to wait for the bank lobby to open to get help. You can contact us from 6 to 8:30 in the morning or from 5 to 10 in the evening, and we'll connect you to a real, live, local person who can answer questions and fix problems 7 days a week. Bank different. Bank Central. Central National Bank. Member FDIC.
Hey, what's going on, everybody, and welcome to the Blazers Edge podcast. I'm your co-host, Dan Marang. As always, I am joined by Team Mom, Tara Bowen-Biggs. Tara, how you doing today?
Hey, I am doing pretty good, Dan. I'm just getting back from being out of town for a week, so I wasn't able to watch a lot of basketball, but then the
Thankfully.
Blazers only had 2 games, so I didn't miss a ton.
You know, you might have considered keeping that out of town for a few more days. You really, I don't want to say you didn't miss anything, but you really didn't miss anything.
Well, what I did catch of the Blazers, I actually did watch the game against Philadelphia, and I listened to the Atlanta game in the car on the way home. And even though there were only 2 games, I feel like they took a combined 5 years off my life.
Yeah, no, I've had a couple of those already, which is probably explains why I look the way I look now. Yeah, I mean, I you know what? It's great. Let's just dive right into these. Let's take care of the good stuff first. Philadelphia.
Yeah, let's start with Philadelphia.
Okay, so Philadelphia, first part of the game, first quarter, second quarter, first half, however you want to call it. You know, whatever the layman's term is. God, not great basketball. I think going into this game, this is kind of the one where I was like, well, if Embiid's playing, Covington's playing, everybody's out there and healthy, save Fultz, this is probably going to be a tough one for Portland without Dame. Matchup-wise, just not pretty on paper, unless you've got somebody to really make the opposing defense work. And Dame's the kind of guy that drives that. So the first half, while disappointing, it wasn't unexpected.
Right. You know, going back to the fact that they didn't have Dame, so that was the 4th game without Damian. Am I correct about that? They've been missing him since the game after San Antonio. San Antonio is where he got hurt, and then he's been out. And I think the Philadelphia was the 4th one that he missed. And there was some strange stuff beforehand where people were thinking that he was going to play, and then he was not going to play.
Yeah, it's a hamstring. And this is on Blazers Outsiders too. I don't want Damian Lillard out there with a bum hamstring. No matter, it's like one of the only injuries where I'm like, you can play through it, blah blah blah. No, hamstrings are fickle beasts, and if it's not 100%, don't go out there. You know,
I'm really surprised that they have even been considering talking about him playing with a hamstring injury like that. I mean, when he got hurt and when he was so convinced that he got kicked in the back of the leg, I was just like, oh, that's not good. Because that's how those soft tissue, injuries manifest themselves, is they feel like someone kicks you or punches you. And then, you're just surprised when you find nobody was around. And that was just exactly what happened. And so I understood that it happened at a time where he was going to have a little bit of extra time off because of the holidays and the break. And I thought there might be a little bit we're going to give Damian a little bit more time to rest off like that. But the whole, he's going to play. No, he's not going to play. He's going to play. No, he's not going to play. And he was even, I think, dressed that night.
He's been dressed the last 2 nights now.
Yeah, it just seems strange to me that they don't want to just be like, you know what, dude, just
shut it down.
Are they just letting him go through the warm-ups?
That's a really good point. Going from that, what does that do to mentally to the team?
Right.
You think your guy may be out there because Dame's going to tell his guys I'm going to try to go. I'm going to try to go.
And of course he is.
Because that's
Dame. That's right.
That's why I want the medical staff
to
shut him down. Because we've talked about this off air. Hamstrings or calves, those soft tissue injuries that you normally associate with soccer, usually are a bare minimum 3 to 5, 6 weeks. Mm-hmm. That's just the nature of the beast. Especially with these high level athletes, the amount of strain and stress they put on their bodies, it's something that you usually need to go through a few practices, get in the groove, and make sure you're comfortable again. And that's what Damian Lillard said, is that it's not so much a pain thing; it's a comfort, not feeling like he can do something. And if you still have that thought in the back of your head, it's probably not a good idea to be playing.
Right. And I remember talking to Brian Freeman, Blazers edge writer who played professionally overseas, and him talking about how when you're injured as an athlete, you don't want to, describe it to the trainer because you're afraid you're going to describe it to the trainer and the trainer's going to tell you, no, you can't play. And so the trainer's trying to get you to explain what it really feels like. And everybody's trying to just dance around whether or not you can play or not. And it just must be a really hard situation. But one thing the Blazers have going for us, and I absolutely agree with you about letting him take as long as he needs to come back, because right now the Trailblazers are actually playing a full-on backup point guard with Shabazz. I am so excited that they're not trying to just kind of tweak things and move CJ over and no, just put
Insert Shabazz,
and
let him go.
Shabazz run the show. I'm so happy to see that. I've been wanting that for a couple of years now. Just like have a clear-cut backup point guard. Don't mess around trying to get CJ to do everything.
That's like the perfect segue we've got here too, because the Philadelphia game, the first half was, to coin my favorite phrase here, it was a dumpster fire. It wasn't good basketball at all. Nurkic was awful. Shabazz was 0 for 6. CJ was ineffective. It just wasn't good. Third quarter, they found a way to make it worse. And you're just sitting there like, you've got to be kidding me. And then all of a sudden,
found a way to make it worse.
Yeah, it's just compounding stupidity sometimes, and you just wonder how that team comes out of a locker room like that at the professional level. And we've seen that a few times this year, where you're just like, what happened? What on earth was that?
Yeah. And
Shabazz is 0 for 6 going into halftime. And then he comes out and absolutely catches fire. Full-on Mockingjay. To be able to do what he
Hunger
did.
Games reference?
Yeah, I just pulled that one out. I shot my shot there. That one bounced off the rim.
Nice. It was a good try, though, Danny.
Hey,
good
you know
work.
what? I'm trying to work a few of these in. But, he starts the game 0 for 6. He comes out. He ends the game with, 23?
Yeah. 23. Yeah,
he 23
made
points.
1 point in the first half, I think.
Yeah.
22 in the second half.
So he gets to the line 9 times. Starts the game 0 for 6, finishes 7 for 14. So if your math's pretty good, he had a pretty decent close to the game. 15 of those points were in the fourth quarter. He just put on an absolute show, and it just happened to coincide with Nurkic's nose fouling J.J. Redick's face.
That's a funny way to put it. Yeah. Okay, so to give you a little context about how I watched this game, I'm going to back up just a little bit. Before the game, Mike Richmond from the Oregonian tweeted out that the Blazers are going to be wearing their red jerseys again. And so, of course, he was like, prepare accordingly. So I, tweeted out my red wedding gifts and then proceeded to get ready to listen to it on the radio. And then Brian Wheeler says, the Blazers are wearing their red jerseys. They're not the regular statement edition. They're the city edition, or some people call them the university edition. And I was like, what is he talking about? I was like, did they have a whole nother red jersey I don't know about? And I was so confused. And I was like, is he kidding? Is he making it up? And I was so confused.
Terrified.
I was like, what is happening? Is there a whole nother red jersey that we could just derail us even further? And so I made my husband take me down to the bar because we're on this deserted island. And I was like, we have to go watch this game because it was on TNT so that I could see which uniforms the Blazers were wearing because I was so confused. So they were wearing the statement jerseys. Brian Wheeler was being funny. But the long and the short of it was that he and I were the only people in the bar except for the bartender. So during the game, I was loudly yelling at everybody. The first half of the game, I yelled at Nurkic so hard the whole time. Go to the basket. Dunk the ball. Use 2 hands. What are you doing? I was just the more I complained,
channeling your inner Dan.
I was like, so I got to do this. And the more I went on, the better he played. And then he got hit in the nose, and I was like, this is fantastic. This is the Nurkic that we want. He was dunking. He was going to the basket. He was why can't he be like that every game?
It's a mentality. I'm absolutely 100% convinced it's totally down to mentality, because Joel Embiid all the flopping and diving aside, and I know that sounds rich coming from a guy who's talking about Jusuf Nurkic right now, but Embiid just got bullied endlessly by Nurkic.
Oh,
and
he
Embiid
was in his head.
Embiid is massive and has all the balance and strength and coordination in the world. That's how he's able to pull off the stuff that he pulls off. I had 76ers fans in my mentions on Twitter talking about how Embiid doesn't really flop, and when he does it because he's trying to protect his body, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, okay, yeah, go ahead and explain that when he's going from the three-point line with a right-to-left crossover, pull-up, step-back, fadeaway. But he's that coordinated to pull that off, but he gets off balance if Evan Turner brushes by his hip, huh? So, sorry, I had to pull back on that one. Those guys kind of riled me up. But Nurkic went absolutely nuts. Back that up with Shabazz's second half. CJ McCollum finding his groove and getting to the free throw line like crazy. He got a career-high 14 free throw attempts and shot 14 of 14. And, I mean, this is probably the big story from the game other than the individual performances. 47 free throws for the Trailblazers to Philadelphia's 14. And I know this is great coming from the guy who complains about officiating all the time, but it was nice to see Portland rewarded with free throws for the first time, really, it felt like this season, especially considering that in the 3 games previous, the Trailblazers took 44 combined free throws. So in the 3 previous games, they took less free throws than they did in this one game.
Right, in that one game. What I don't understand is, I know that there's been some tension between the referees and the league, and now the referees are going to be talking with the players' union to try to work out some stuff, talking about the last 2-minute reports. I feel like the referees are going to be in the news quite a bit as they try to work out some stuff. But these discrepancies in games where one team shoots so many more than other teams, I just have a hard time. I have a hard time with that. I don't understand why that happens. I mean,
there are times when it's going to happen.
They all make fouls. Everybody fouls. Is it just that they're not seeing, like, what is going on that they have? It seems like there's been more this year, and I haven't looked at any numbers to, determine that. But what do you think is going on with the referee officiating this year?
Well, I mean, to me, it's not just this year. Anybody who's followed me for any period of time knows that my biggest complaint with the NBA is how the game's officiated. I've long been a proponent of absolutely tearing down every bit of establishment within the NBA as it comes to officiating and rebuilding it from scratch as a completely and entirely independent unit. Like I want it to be outside of the NBA's purview, so they can't affect or change or do anything to the refs. I want to know what the training programs are. I want to know how they're going about teaching and improving the product, how they're recruiting, where they're recruiting, and what the requirements are to become an NBA official. Like right now, if you wanted to become an NBA official, do you know how to do it?
I do not.
Nobody does. I want it to be a full-time job.
You go up through the ranks, and then
what ranks though? Do you go through?
That you start.
Do you start at local? Do you go to college? Which colleges do you go to? Are there training seminars? There are things that are out there, but it's not something that's the path to the NBA is pretty easy as far as like if you have the talent, you can get there.
You mean as a player?
Yes.
Okay.
As a referee, that's not the case.
I see.
The other thing that's a big thing to me is stop having part-time officials. These guys all have careers outside of the NBA. And the reason they say that is so they can't be, paid off. They won't get lulled into gambling. Here's an idea. You have a multi-billion-dollar franchise or institution in the NBA. Pay the officials the money it takes to negate that effect. I mean, they're already paying, like the high-end officials are making $200,000 a year. So what's the problem with doubling that?
Yeah, they seem like they should have enough to go, or more than enough to go around.
So I mean, I don't want to get too off the beaten path here, but there's a lot of things that I don't like with officiating and the way it's done because it affects the game, it affects outcomes, it affects how games are called, how they're played. For those that aren't aware, coaches and teams, they all have scouting books on referees just like they do opposing players. Because there are referees that call the game certain ways. Why is that a thing? Shouldn't the game be called the same way no matter who you're playing and where you're playing?
And I wonder if that is something that kind of leads to those big discrepancies, depending on which referee is parked where and what combination with the other referees. Yeah, that would explain.
Vegas has all this stuff.
Some of that.
Vegas has all this stuff, and it factors into their numbers.
What do you think about the last 2-minute reports?
I like them in the sense that it highlights the stupidity of the NBA officials in those situations, and not just their ability to call a game, but the absurdity that we get sometimes with how things go down in the last 2 minutes. Like the no call out of bounds call. Like when there's a foul, it should be called, but the ball goes off the player that was fouled, and because it's under 2 minutes, it gets reviewed, and all of a sudden the correct call is out of bounds off that player as opposed to the foul.
Right. So, but that's a rule thing, right?
Exactly. But that's what I mean. Like, what is the point of the last 2-minute report if it's not going to be there to correct the problems as opposed to just highlight the ridiculousness that goes on every night? So I get that I like them in a general sense. Mm-hmm. But
I mean, for me, I get, as a fan, I get educated by them. Because I don't think some people say, oh, it's easy to see that was a foul, or it's easy to see that was travel, easy to see that. I'm like, I don't think any of this stuff is easy to see. I mean, I've been watching basketball for quite a long time, but I haven't been watching it, with the same, intensity that I have over the last 4 years or so, let's say. But even with that, I mean, I spend a lot of time on the NBA rule book trying to just watch and see what they're talking about, like with gathers and, what's a moving screen. And they have 17 different examples, and they all have different nuances to them. So the last 2-minute reports for me help me, understand, help me solidify my understanding of some of the rules, which I don't really think are that cut and dry.
And I think that's the problem. And that's why you get performances like we had against Philadelphia, where one team has 47 free throws and the other has 14.
Yeah.
The Philadelphia 76ers, I don't look at them as a team that is just absolutely chucking from three. Just for, this game's argument, the Sixers took 32 threes, the Blazers took 24. That's 8 more shots. Yet, the 76ers took 12 more shots. So percentage-wise, it really isn't that much more. So if that's the case, then why are the free throw disparities that wild? It's not like Philadelphia is a team that's sitting here chucking mid-range jumpers. Ben Simmons is going to the rim. That's where he can't shoot outside of 12 feet. So that's coming. Amir Johnson is going to the rim. Trevor Booker is going to the rim. Saric is a guy that will go to the rim. The only guys really that want to sit there and knock down shots from the outside over and over again consistently are Covington and Redick. Now, Embiid shot 6 of 12 from 3 and almost brought that team back that night. But, the disparity there between those two was absolutely wild, and I think was definitely a huge factor in Portland getting the comebacks. I mean, you get 16 free throws from Nurkic and 14 from McCollum. That's 30 by themselves. I mean, McCollum had as many free throws by himself as the 76ers. And while I appreciate that as a Blazers, quote-unquote fan, as I'm sitting there watching that, I don't enjoy that as far as how it impacts the game night in, night out.
That's what David Fizdale made a whole speech about, where he became a local hero, and they made T-shirts.
Yeah, take that for data.
about that. So things do have a way of evening out, as you talked about, the huge free throw disparities prior, and then this game came in and had a free throw disparity. The Blazers did manage to pull it out with Mad Nurk with the broken nose, or with the popped up nose. But things also have a way of evening out, and that leads us to the next game against Atlanta, which started off pretty well. I mean, it didn't start off great.
Did it start off well? Because it took...
I was in the car and it was going in and out, and then my data ran out, and so it was buffering, and it was so torturous trying to listen to this game.
Listening to that game while buffering, that's probably the worst way imaginable. That's a form of torture that I'm fairly certain in the 2018 Geneva Convention guidelines will be updated.
Just don't say I never did anything for this podcast.
God, I mean, it took a couple miracle shots for Portland to hit 23 points against the worst team in the league in the first quarter. Like they were outplayed. They were outplayed drastically early on, and that was pretty much the theme throughout the game. The Blazers won one quarter. Against the Atlanta Hawks. And that was the second where it looked like, hey, you know what? Maybe they realized that, hey, you know what? We kind of came in here. We were overlooking them. We played stupid in the first quarter. We're only down after one. Let's go ahead and get the ball rolling. So they take a 6-point lead in a half. And then the rest of the game happened. And,
Yeah, it was. It sounded ugly. I was glad I wasn't watching it. It sound and that's one where after it's over, you just think, who didn't get up for this game? Like, and why weren't they up for this game? It kind of leads us into one of the things that what we were going to talk about is there's been quite a bit of talk lately. The Blazers right now are one game over 500. We thought that they would come out the gate maybe a little bit stronger because of the strength of schedule was supposed to be really easy. And, after very high expectations in their first two games.
This is where right now in the schedule,
away.
This is where it was supposed to get tough. And they were supposed to have the buffer built in right now.
Right. Yes. And so that has not happened. But the question that I've been hearing more and more often is, why is this happening? And recently, John Canzano wrote that article about talking about, who should people be looking at to step up and take responsibility for the place where the team is. Who's responsible for this mediocrity? There's been a lot of talk about, is it the coach? Is it the players? Is it the GM? Or is it the owner? Canzano's article made the point that the owner, Paul Allen, is very involved, and he's trying to tinker and try to be too involved, whereas in his ownership of the Seahawks, he's much more hands off. So the article happened to lay a lot of the responsibility on Paul Allen for being too involved, and he needs to just let the owner or the GM and the coach do their thing. What kind of thoughts? What thoughts do you have on all of this? I guess I know that one of the things that you're really passionate about, so maybe we'll start with that. Is this a Terry Stotts problem?
No,
and
that's I can get to that one really easy. A lot of people have talked to me or gone at me or asked questions over the last couple of weeks about Terry Stotts on Twitter, or they've emailed me, DM'd me, whatever, texted me, all basically trying to say that somehow laid us at Stotts' feet. Coach Stotts, in his entire time in Portland, has overperformed expectations literally every single year. That to me is the surest sign of a coach. His players
have outperformed to expectations.
Absolutely. I mean, Terry Stotts and what he's been able to do in Portland.
But why aren't they doing it now, I guess, is what people are wanting to know.
I think people are
what's different this year?
I think people were expecting too much. That's the thing. This team, if it wasn't for a miracle, an absolute miracle, or miracles the last 2 years, you had the push in 15-16 where they got absolutely red hot post All-Star break. They did all of that. I mean, they played out of their minds down the stretch to get 3 games above 500. 3 games. 44 wins. Last year, Nurkic fever, how great they played and all this fantastic basketball, rah, 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 to get to 41 wins. A 500 team. This team, post LaMarcus, Batum, Matthews, Lopez, doesn't have the talent. That's flat out. It does not have the talent of those teams, and yet, through sheer will, magic, awesomeness, everything else Stotts can conjure together, has been able to outperform. I mean, this is a team in 2015-16 was picked to win 27 and a half games. Even if you didn't think the team was that bad, which I don't think many people did, nobody had that team for more than 35, 36 wins. Every projection I put on that team was at 34 and a half. I mean, that was the reality of it. So to get them to, 10 games above that was nutty. So it falsely raised expectations because Stotts has been good enough to get more out of these guys than I think anyone not named Kerr, Popovich, or even Spoelstra could do.
So I guess some of the things that I have been hearing are, why is he no longer able to do that?
I think the big thing is that they've lost shooting, and it's not just Allen Crabbe. It's just the idea of how they want to play. Maurice Harkless is not a consistent shooter. Crabbe was a guy that came off the bench that gave you a ton of gravity. Evan Turner has, poor guy's fallen off completely. I mean, just his effectiveness is next to nothing on the offensive end right now.
So it sounds like you're saying players were playing beyond themselves, and they've come back down to earth. Okay, here's a few other criticisms that I've heard of Stotts that I'd love to hear your thoughts on. One of the things is that he's playing so many rotations that players don't know their roles.
There are 3 players on this team that know their role night in, night out. Maybe 4. 4 now. Dame, CJ, Nurkic, Aminu. And the reason why they know that,
I'd say Shabazz.
I'm almost to the point where I can say that about Shabazz too. But Shabazz is doing a lot of this with Dame down, so we'll see how many minutes he gets when Dame comes back. But I really love everything Shabazz is doing. Not to undersell that at all. But the rest of the guys, the reason they don't know their role is because they don't have one, and it's not on the coach to create a role for them. It's on them to deliver.
Is it not but isn't it the role of the coach to tell people what this is? This
you
is
can
how
tell
we're gonna
Maurice
play?
Harkless to shoot corner threes, but if he can't make them, what's he going to do out there? You can tell Evan Turner to space the floor and take the jumper when it's there, but if opposing defenses don't recognize him or don't care that he's out there taking it, what does it do? Everybody's like, oh, they need to get a more ball movement-oriented offense. If you move the ball to a guy in a position where he's not capable or not able to deliver, defenses won't go out there. Everybody's like, oh, they need to run more cuts for Maurice Harkless. How are you going to run cuts for Maurice Harkless when there's 4 people waiting in the paint because they don't have to extend their defense to go out to him?
So it sounds like you're saying that the players who don't know their roles because the roster was not designed to run the plays that the people who do know their roles should be able to do.
That Portland's been running since Stotts has got here. It's not like things have changed drastically as far as how the offense goes. It's really not, because if you watch, there are times when Dame and CJ look to move the ball, and they move the ball, and then nothing comes out of it. So what do they do later in the game? They don't do it, because the expectation that the guy on the receiving end of the pass is going to deliver just isn't there anymore. I think there's some serious trust issues within this team as far as guys who can deliver night in and night out. And I think that circle is getting tighter and tighter and tighter as far as who those guys will trust with the ball in crunch time. Anyway, well, look at Harkless. He came back out and played really well, blah, 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 blah. Dame wasn't there. That's clearly why. No. That's not clearly why. He got matched up against a rookie-laden or youth-laden team that didn't know how to close out a game in the Lakers. Mm-hmm. That's what that was. I mean, Maurice Harkless is a nice and serviceable enough player. I like what he does. But saying that Coach Stotts is holding back Maurice Harkless is probably the most asinine thing I've heard in 2017. And there have been some stupid things said this year. So when people get to that level where that's where they're pegging the problem with the Portland Trailblazers, like you just completely lose me.
Okay, I'm going to give you some more at great risk of being yelled at again. I just, people don't spend as much time thinking about the Blazers as you do necessarily. So, I'm just giving you some of the things that I've heard.
No, trust me, I know. I've been fighting these things off with a bat on Twitter for the last 72 hours. It's nutty.
So I'm asking you to explain without hitting me with a bat. So here's something else that I've heard about Stotts, that he's not playing the rookies that Olshey drafted. And that's not just this year, but that he's, with the exception of Damian, that he spends too much time, or he doesn't give the rookies enough time earlier. So that includes like Connaughton and Laming.
Who does? What coach in the NBA plays rookies? That's supposed to be winning.
Utah.
But even then, they played Donovan Mitchell because they had to. Ricky Rubio has been really, really bad, and they've been laden with injuries. And I love Donovan Mitchell. Everybody knows that was the guy that I was camping for hard in this draft.
So your response is that other coaches don't play rookies either?
No, because guys
need to,
unless they're tanking or they're a youth team. If they're a youth-laden team that's looking to build for the future, because remember that what we've been told and what we've been sold over the last 2 years is this is a team that's growing. It's building into something. It's not looking forward to the future. It's, hey, this is a team that's in the now. It's looking like it could turn into something. That's what we've been told over the past few years. It's just one more little tweak, one little change. And if that's the case, you don't play rookies. You play what's going to get you wins night in, night out. And that's the same to be said for every coach in the NBA that's not on a team that's looking to build for the future or a team that's tearing down and tanking. Nobody plays rookies. Unless, here's the caveat to that, unless they immediately show that they're ready for the NBA. Damian Lillard showed that he was immediately ready for the NBA. Jason Tatum showed everybody he was immediately ready for the NBA. I think Mitchell you could make the case for. The rest of the guys, they're all on teams. Look at every other team. Simmons is with the 76ers, and they're kind of pushing forward, but they have Embiid to go around him, and then they have Fultz, who hasn't even touched the floor yet. Lauri Markkanen is in Chicago on one of the worst teams in the league. John Collins in Atlanta on the worst team in the league. Lonzo and Kuzma in L.A., one of the worst teams in the league. Dennis Smith in Dallas, one of the worst teams in the league. That's why those guys are getting time. And not only that, Swanigan and Collins are both bigs on a team that has more bigs than they have anything else. So there's just no reason that if you're talking about this team building and playing for right now, that those guys would be out there or they'd be getting extended minutes early in the season. There's just no way.
So you're thinking Stotts is not the problem?
Yeah, no.
That's what I'm hearing loud and clear.
No, absolutely not.
He's doing the best that he can with the pieces that he has.
The only time that I think I've questioned Stotts this year are on two things. One, when he pulled Nurkic in the Nets game. I think that was the first time. I think I have probably 2 or 3 games a season with him where I question a rotation or I question a call. And I think that's only natural, because if you're agreeing with somebody 100% of the time, that's probably a problem. The other one is burying Myers-Leonard when this is a team that just needs shooting. Mm-hmm. And people know that, I love Myers. I'm unabashedly a fan of Myers. But I think from a contextual standpoint, as far as the skill set that he can bring on the floor, particularly as Portland struggles with shooting, Orlando Williams, Dwight James, and Dan Sheldon, they've all hit on this in the post-game show for the Blazers. I don't know what's going on with Myers. Like why he's not able to get on the floor. Those are the only things I've really questioned. The rotations, you want to know why Coach Stotts is doing what he's doing with these rotations? Because nobody's showing they can deliver night in, night out. It was like, well, you got to get consistency to play night in, night out. Nobody on this team outside Dame and CJ have earned that. And Aminu. So if you can't deliver night in, night out, then why should you be out there night in and night out in a particular position?
I'd say that there is at least one other player who is delivering night in and night out, but he's a role player off the bench. So he's not, showing the flashy numbers. He's not. And it's your boy Ed. It is my boy Ed.
And I think the reason that I haven't even talked about Ed is because he's just doing what he does.
Yeah. But when you talk about one of the things about this team is him being consistently inconsistent, Ed has been extremely consistent.
Yeah, he's been probably the steadiest of anyone this year, probably.
Yeah, he's one of the players that's actually, improved over this last recent stretch of games, like over the last 2 weeks. If you look at the, some of the average, like what the team averages are, for the season versus the last 2 weeks, they're actually falling behind a little bit. They're falling behind season average. Ed is one of the few players who's actually improving his numbers slightly over the last 2 weeks compared to his season average. Ed comes night in and night out and does exactly what he needs to do as a role player. And it makes me sad that somebody who is so excellent at being that role player is maybe the person that is one of the most likely to not be here next year. That makes me very sad.
Or even in February.
Right. Well, I wanted to make one other remark about Ed, and maybe we can talk a little bit about, February. And that is what I've noticed over the last several games, that Collins and Ed come in together. Like, you can predict them coming in together. When it's time for Collins to enter the game, that Ed Davis comes in with him. Collins has played 254 minutes so far this season. He's played 145 of them alongside Ed Davis. Over the last 10 games, Collins has played 72% of his minutes alongside Ed Davis. And I think that is by design, because I think that Ed Davis is a really good teacher I think he's a really good influence and mentor for Collins.
He covers up a ton of mistakes for anybody too.
But
not just Collins, but I'm talking about in general. He covers up mistakes defensively for a lot of people, and that allows Collins to learn without being punished severely for it.
Yeah, but I think it's on purpose. I think Ed and Collins are, at least for the time being, while we're going to see Collins out there, we're going to see him together with Ed, because I think he pairs well with Ed, and I think he can learn from Ed. And like you said, he can cover up some things for him, but he plays well when he comes in with Ed. And that got me thinking, because at the same time, Caleb Swanigan just got sent to the G League, and it got me thinking about I think, Collins is playing right now because of that relationship, that good, mentor-mentee relationship that they appear to have on the court. And it's not that I don't think Caleb Swanigan would be like a good mentee, but I just don't see who on the Trailblazers right now would be set up to be his mentor in that kind of way. What's it going to be? Nurkic, who's like barely older than him? Myers isn't seeing any time. He's not going to learn anything from him. And I think sending Caleb Swanigan down to the G League gets him exactly what he needs, which is playing time. And he can just get in there and do what he needs to do. I think Collins, somebody who's, played as a backup, who's used to playing, I don't want to say second fiddle, but who's used to coming in off of the bench, playing behind somebody, that type of a learning situation for him, I think, is good. Whereas I think Swanigan just needs to get down to the G League and just dominate and get used to playing against bigger bodies, college, bodies that are bigger than
absolutely
college. I mean, do you think there's any credence to that? Does that make any sense at all?
Yeah, no, it really does.
That type of development works for each of those guys individually.
No, it absolutely makes sense. And that's why early on in the year I was screaming for Zach Collins to go down to the G League if they weren't going to play him at all. Like, get him minutes. Like, I don't have a problem with Zach Collins playing. I have a problem with him playing in these weird spurts where games are on the line and you don't know what you have in the kid. That was what was bothering me. I'm like, why are you putting him out there right now if you're talking about trying to win games? Like, it's either develop the kid and acknowledge that, or send him down and get him playing time. Like, that's where I kind of found myself going back and forth. And it was the same thing really with Swanigan. But the whole mentor-mentee relationship, it does make a lot of sense. We've seen it before. We've seen it with Brisbilla. We've seen it with Kaman. We saw it with Kim Hughes. Having that relationship and something to lean on, because I think Collins sees himself as a more offensive-minded version of Ed Davis, someone who's positionally flexible, who can go inside and outside, moves his feet well. Offensively, there's obviously some big differences, but I think he wants to get behind that versatility. And he was on the pregame show on Rip City Live the other day, and he was talking about exactly that, about how he can be positionally flexible. He did basically say that centers are probably a bit too much for him still. In the NBA, and that's a given, and which is why when Ed's out there with him, Ed's at the center position and Collins is at the power forward. But yeah, no, I think it's a good matchup for their playing styles because of their abilities defensively and how they move their feet. That offers them some flexibility. But I think the reason they're allowed to be so successful right now on that end of the floor are because guys like Connaughton and Shabazz have been so good in the sports. Like, if you look at all the lineups over the past month that feature Shabazz, Pecan, and Davis, those three guys together on the floor at the same time have some of the best ratings of any lineup the Blazers put out there. Because if you look at them, what does Napier give you on defense? Probably your most aggressive defender on the perimeter, right? Generates more steals than anybody. Just in the last 10 games, Napier's giving Portland over 2 steals a game. Which is crazy for anyone in Portland.
It's kind of hard to answer this question now with Napier playing with the starters, but do you think that the Blazers' main bench unit is better than most teams' main bench unit?
No.
Or a lot of teams?
No,
you don't.
No.
The Connaughton, Napier, Davis.
I think that those guys are all fine in their own right, but Napier and probably Connaughton are the only guys on that unit right now that I fully trust to deliver on both ends. Like Ed Davis, I like as a player.
Not Ed?
No, I love Ed. Offensively, he has one skill offensively, which is, well, 2 if you want to count screen setting. Screen setting and offensive rebound put back. Yeah, I mean, it's just if Ed could hit a 15-footer, 12 to 15-footer at like a 40% clip, just enough to give defenses pause, because when they run a pick and roll with Ed Davis right now, it's a roll. There's no pop.
Yeah.
there is no pop there. There's no sliding off the pick and seeing him just kind of pull away to the side and open up the lane. So I think that limits what Portland can do. Now, if they had another guy out, like let's say Zach Collins magically discovers he can shoot the ball. And for everybody who's going to get all wired up right now, he's shooting 26% from 3. So please calm down. If he discovers that he can shoot the ball consistently, then I think that could open things up for Davis. But we're still a long ways off before seeing anything like that develop consistently. Connaughton, if there's one thing I love about Connaughton and Napier, both those guys, when they think that they've got the shot that's in their wheelhouse, there is zero hesitation in taking those shots.
Yes. I love that.
It's one of my favorite traits about those guys. The other thing is that they're both competitors. Have you ever seen Napier or Connaughton take a play off?
No, they hustle.
All the time, always going after it. Even with Connaughton or Napier's overmatched physically, because Napier's small for the point guard position, and Pat's not. Well, he's an explosive athlete. The one thing I've always said is that Pat's side to side isn't the best, and when he's on a true 3, a 6'7", 6'8", 6'9" swingman with real speed, Pat's kind of in trouble.
He's going to get left behind.
Yeah, but he does a lot of things really well to negate that by being ahead of where guys want to go to. And so you get Napier's defense, you get Pat's defense, and their willingness to work. They both have multiple ways of generating their own shot. Pat can catch on the catch and shoot at 3. He can catch in traffic and finish at the rim. And I think we're at the point now where I've said it jokingly a bunch of times, and half serious, but Pat Connaughton is the best cutter on this team. He finishes in traffic incredibly well. He's got good hands in the lane. And he can even create off the bounce for himself a little bit. It's kind of,
somebody would just throw him an alley-oop.
Yeah, that's the other thing, is he can finish. He can finish on the oop too. He just needs to get one every now and then. Shabazz can dribble off the pick and roll. He can pull up. I mean, he pulled up from 35 feet the other day. It was like, okay, baby Dame. He gets to the rim. He had that little scoop finish at the rim the other night. It was just absolutely beautiful. He keeps his dribble alive. He's kind of a modern-day point guard where he looks to set up his teammates, but he's looking more to set the pace, the tempo of the game. And when he's on the floor, the Blazers play faster. There's no doubt about it.
What I trust about having the ball in Shabazz's hands is I trust that there's going to be more than just one option, like that, like you're saying, like he's running the floor. Like he's looking for more than just the one option. He's looking to get people moving and filling space so he has multiple options. I don't know. I guess I'm glad that we're talking about the bench, because we spend so much time usually talking about the starters and the big 3 and what's going on with the big 3 and stuff. And I think we can trust the bench. I personally trust the bench more than I have in a long time, partly because, like you were saying, that no hesitation. We have guys who come off the bench who don't worry about what they're supposed to be doing. They just do it, and they might not do it successfully every time, but they do it without having to think about it. And I like that.
Making the right play.
One of the bright spots, I think, is the bench this year.
Yeah, I mean, if you're making the right play and making the right decision, if it doesn't work out, I think most people are willing to concede that's just the game. But if you're consistently making the right play, and that means if you're a shooter taking the shot, if that means if you're going to put the ball on the floor and attack the rim, and that's your game, then go for it. Like I am not. If Pat Connaughton comes off a curl and catches the ball on a dribble handoff, squares up and pulls for three with 8 seconds left on the shot clock, after they've gone through the set, I'm not mad about that. I've seen him hit the shot. People like, he needs to square up and take that, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, okay, that's fine. If you want to criticize that, whatever. But I'm not mad with because he missed the shot. I'd be mad if he didn't take the shot, because now he catches the bigs are looking for the rebound if they're going to go for the offensive rebound, or you have guys kind of leaning back looking to get back in transition and play defense. So you're not getting the opportunity you would get otherwise if the play's set up to get you a good look and you get the good look and don't take it. That's a frustrating possession for me, and I don't think you get a lot of those from Napier, Davis, Connaughton. Really, I think the list pretty much ends there when you get past some of the starters. So I think that's why. I mean, if you look at their stats over the last 10 games, Shabazz Napier is the only guy in the top 6 Blazers to have a positive net rating. Granted, it's only a positive 0.4, but it's a lot shinier than Evan Turner's negative 14 or Aminu's even negative 8.
Yeah, I know. I've been looking at, you know how much I love Aminu, but I've been looking at his stats, and he's been struggling with his shot, and that is making a difference, I think, with all of his numbers across the board.
Yeah, I think Aminu's still doing a lot of things, but I think it's more about the rest of the starting lineup is just getting their butts kicked. I mean, they've had some of the most lackluster performances in the past 2 weeks of any Blazers team I've seen in recent memory. Like and I think what we're seeing that reaction in the fan base, which is why so many people are so vociferous right now about Stotts, about Olshey, about Paul Allen. Everybody's looking for somebody to blame, to point out exactly what's wrong or why this is going wrong, and the fact that the Blazers are a game over 500, and yet people are still this angry, I think kind of paints a picture of how a lot of people maybe he projected this team going into the season.
Right. Yeah, I think so. And it begs the question, what do you think is most likely to happen on February 8th? Do you think the Blazers make a big move for personnel reasons, or do you think they make smaller moves for the sake of getting under the cap? Or
I think there's a lot that can happen.
I think it's going to be hard to do both. I think the market's going to be strange.
Here's the thing. If Portland goes downhill, somebody's probably going to lose their job. Like if Portland, if the Blazers, I mean, if you look at their upcoming schedule, it's brutal. I mean, that's just the fact of the matter. Other than the Chicago Bulls game, which they'll have, tomorrow, Monday, since we're recording this New Year's Eve. Then they go to Cleveland. Then they have the Hawks again, which they've already shown they can beat you. And you're at home in a place where
I'm going to that game. I'm not sure how excited I am about that.
Yeah, so you're at home in a place where you
at least it won't be buffering this time.
Yeah, well, at least this won't be the 8th straight loss at home because they pulled out the home win against Philly. But then you have the Spurs at home, and then you won a 4-game roadie against OKC, Houston, New Orleans, Minnesota.
Oh, God.
Portland could easily find themselves in some serious trouble very quickly. Granted, it lightens up a little bit with the Suns, Pacers, and Mavericks, but then it goes Nuggets, Timberwolves, Mavericks, Clippers, Bulls, Raptors, Celtics, Pistons. So you've got a pile of division opponents who are all good to great teams. The Clippers got Blake Griffin back. The Bulls are playing better basketball. The Mavericks just beat the Thunder tonight. So, you look at these teams and how they're playing right now, you're just sitting here like, crap. Because it's not looking great.
Right. Well, and you said that, when I brought up the trade deadline, you said that you thought that if things go poorly between now and then, somebody might lose their job. Do you think that, I guess
that will dictate what happens February 8th.
Right. Like if it's the general manager, then it's going to be hard to come through with some trades.
Yeah, because somebody new is going to come in.
All that is gone.
Yeah, exactly.
If
it's
the
coach,
that would be
you maybe try shuffling some deck chairs.
Yeah.
This isn't the kind of thing where I think Paul Allen's going to sell the team before February 8th, so I don't think that's a problem.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, if something really, I think that's the biggest question mark right now. Not what is Portland going to do February 8th, but what happens to Portland between now and February 8th.
Between now, wow, that's a really good point. And so much of that is going to be determined on the effort that the players bring in every night.
Really, the next 2 weeks is going to determine that. Like if something is going to happen between now and then, this pack of games is going to do it. This is at least from what I've been told, like this is the straw that's going to break the camel's back one way or the other.
But it's interesting though, because like you said, it's the first time in a couple of years that we can remember kind of looking at the players going, did everybody bring it tonight?
Yeah.
And so, there's a lot of stuff riding on them being able to bring it every night, which, it's New Year's Eve, right? We're recording this on New Year's Eve. So maybe I can't make New Year's resolutions on behalf of anyone, but maybe they're looking at themselves going, we want our coach to not be under fire.
Yeah, we can gift them some New Year's resolutions. I saw Damian Lillard on Twitter tonight. He's an avid Raiders fan like I am, who wasn't exactly thrilled about Jack Del Rio being fired, he was let go of the Raiders today.
Right.
He basically said that, that's the coach that brought the Raiders back. Well, guess what, folks? Yeah. Terry Stotts is the coach that brought the Blazers back.
Oh, man.
And we all know the relationship that Damian Lillard has with Terry Stotts.
Yeah. I mean, you know how ethereal that a coach's relationship can be with the team. The way that, Fizdale was just gone after becoming a folk hero for Take That for Data. He was gone. Yeah,
I mean, the identity of the Portland Trailblazers is etched in Damian Lillard's DNA now. But Damian Lillard was able to do that because of Coach Stotts enabling that.
Yeah.
So if you're a fan of Damian Lillard and the Portland Trailblazers, if your New Year's Eve or New Year's resolution, the Blazers get it together. If not for the franchise's sake, for Terry Stotts' sake. Because where there's smoke, there's fire. And I don't want to prop up any rumors or anything like that, but when numerous articles are popping up locally and nationally, wondering if your coach is on the hot seat, guess what, folks? He's on the hot seat. And that's true of any sport. Baseball, football, basketball, soccer, it doesn't matter. In those instances where there's smoke, there's fire. And it sucks. So I kind of hope, I hope they figured that one out, if for nothing else, for Stotts' sake. So I know you've got some New Year's resolutions that you wanted to hand out here, kind of like late Christmas gifts.
Right, but they're not nearly as serious as that.
Yeah, let's get away from that for a little bit, because
that's good.
I'm always dark
and
depressing, and this is getting to the point where it's even too much for me.
Oh, God. And you're just dragging me in with you, Dan.
I know.
Okay, let's lighten it up. So I have a New Year's resolution for Aminu, for him to commit to more Euro steps, because that Euro step that he did was so amazing. And it's actually, I believe, the second time that he's done it this year.
It just completely came out of nowhere. Which is funny is when I came up with this idea, the first one that popped in my head was for Aminu to not put the ball on the floor if he can't put it down less than 2 dribbles. If it's more than 2 dribbles, he's not allowed to do it.
Well, in Euro steps, you don't really dribble
and
that much,
that's
right?
fine. Exactly. And he's long and lanky. He can cover some ground. So
we could both have what we want.
Yeah, I'm all about that.
For Aminu. Yeah, so I commit some more for him to commit to more Euro steps. And then for Ed Davis, because like I was saying, he's working so hard just day in and day out. He comes and he does exactly what's expected of Ed Davis. And then he also, I believe, has taken on sort of this extra role of mentoring Zach Collins. He also has twin babies at home. So for Ed Davis, I would like a resolution that he takes really good care of himself and treats himself at least once a month to a spa day or something. Just get some Ed Davis time, get his head, get, take care of himself for once, because I think he's doing a lot and he's managing a lot, and I think he needs to just make time for self-care.
It's not a bad one. I kind of had one here because, Shabazz has been ignited, and he's got some folk hero stuff to him behind the Shabazz is the Man commercials.
Yes.
Anybody who's been watching Blazers Outsiders knows the commercial drives me absolutely insane because I cannot get it out of my head. And my co-hosts Joe and Shane love to just poke me all show long with it. So
Shabazz is the man.
Yeah,
Shabazz is the man.
I think they have
Shabazz is the man.
I think they have a running tally of seeing how many times they can work that in per show, just to get me to stop talking mid sentence and just poke me a little bit. So I'm kind of hoping that Pat Connaughton gets a deal like that. That's just as mind-numbingly stuck in people's heads that everybody else despises as much as I do. But it's one that I can enjoy, and I can just poke everybody with that one. So yeah, I'm wishing that Pat gets paid in some recognition, but also that I get to be spiteful and petty with it. So that's
always looking out for yourself, man.
Absolutely. How can I take advantage of somebody else's New Year's resolution? The finesse game is always going.
I would like the Blazers to resolve to get more players back into the standard TV and appliance commercials, because for the last 2 years Damian hasn't been in those commercials, and I think that's affected everyone. I want to get Damian in his little uniform, in some kind of commercial. I would like to see him taking. I guess he's in that new Adidas commercial, which I don't understand at all.
The one with everybody in it?
Yeah, I don't understand.
I love that commercial.
But they're at a dinner table and there's no dinner. What is going on?
Of course you would notice that.
I don't even know what they're saying. What are they talking? Are they talking about creativity or something like that?
Creativity and individuality, yeah. You got Beckham up there. You got Paul Pogba. You got Messi. You got Dame. You got Von Miller. You got Pharrell. I mean, there's a lot of people in that commercial.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, you've got Torian Prince, who can't get a hold of anybody from Adidas, apparently.
I know. So I guess that Dame is already in a lot of commercials, but I'd like to see him back in some more local ones. I mean, I know he does the car commercial ones too and everything, but he's so talented in so many ways that.
More Dame is always good.
We see CJ all over the place. I want to see more Dame too.
I want to see the fan base get behind a resolution to have another Twilight movie made, so Zach Collins can realize his dream.
So Zach Collins can star in it.
So Zach Collins can star in it as a Twilight vampire. Shout out to Ian Carmel, who called him an emaciated Twilight vampire.
So, how many of the Twilight movies have you seen, Dan?
I've seen parts of, I think, 3 of them.
We got to explore this more at some future date.
It's one of those things where I'll have something on in the background on the TV, and it'll one movie will end and the other one will come on while I'm writing late or something along those lines. I've never actually sat down to watch any part of it.
Well, maybe that's what you could do in the new year, Dan. Maybe you could resolve to watch all the Twilight series. Beginning to end.
I do have a resolution that I mentioned on Blazers Outsiders. For anybody who's been subjected by watching my face on TV, for all the endless commercials that NBC Sports has been pumping up during games, I apologize. And I looked absolutely awful in all of these. I looked like a young John Goodman in Roseanne with the flannel on. So
hey, John Goodman did pretty well for himself.
Hey, I'll take that John Goodman money. I'm about that life. But the resolution that I came with on Blazers Outsiders for myself was I'm going to see if I can drop 41 pounds before the Blazers hit 41 wins. I'm pretty comfortable. I'm safe here. For those worried about my health and safety, I've dropped more weight than that before in a period of time. So, this is about getting me back to being healthy. I'm always a big dude no matter what. But this is about getting back to being healthy me, because as I was sitting here recording this, I went and played basketball the other day and slipped a rib, and I'm barely able to move. So adding excess weight to that, and of course seeing myself on TV with more than 2 chins has been.
I'm very proud of you. That's a good New Year's.
I thought so too.
I'm very proud of you for that.
That way I can get behind the Blazers winning some games too.
Are you gonna eat a lot of kale?
No, I'm gonna go for
I'll teach you how to make really good smoothies.
See, I don't know if I can push to the green smoothies.
You know what? You fight it for a long time, and then once you'll have one, it'll be like, oh, if I just don't look at it, it's fine.
Then maybe that's the problem. I don't know. I love spinach. I love arugula. I've had kale before. It's kind of whatever. But yeah, no.
Put it in a smoothie. It just adds body to it and makes it taste more like a milkshake. That's really what it is.
I just
you'll be fine.
That pea greens is kind of.
I'm very proud of you. You're going to be very healthy. You're going to lose weight and be healthy, and the Blazers are going to win 41 games. It's going to be awesome. My New Year's resolution is to embrace excellence, because after talking with you and Ben Golliver and you guys all being all about excellence, I decided that I should at least give it a try and try to figure out what it's all about. And so I'm not exactly sure what embracing excellence looks like.
Because Ben and I both went to a high school where we embraced excellence. Beaverton High School shout-outs.
Wow. I'm not sure if that just means I'm going to complain more about stuff or what. So
you have to embrace
complain about other people not being excellent or what? So you can be my excellence mentor. I'll ask you.
I will be your Ed Davis. Your Obi-Wan Davis.
Okay. Well, we should probably wrap it up here because it's getting on time to celebrate the new year.
Yes, it is getting to that point. But
we managed to talk a long time about just the two games that the Blazers
in the
played
general
this week,
state of this team, which I think a lot of people have questions about, which I think is the good way. We hit other things we wanted to get to, but I think we got to things that were probably a little more important and or pressing with the current state of the team, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. Yeah, well, and I think there's a lot of consternation out there. There's a lot of hand-wringing, and sometimes we get so deep into the details that we forget to just kind of step back and go, this is still the Trailblazers. This is still the team we love. This is still the team that represents the city. And we want them to, dare I say, be excellent. But, we also want to root for them and cheer for them and not worry every night whether or not they're going to fall off a cliff or
lose to the worst
they're going to show
team in the league.
effort. Yeah, exactly. So, it's kind of a rough time right now. And, yeah,
but tomorrow we have something to look forward to.
I'm not really quite sure what to do about it.
We do have something to look forward to. The unveiling of the Rip City uniforms. Plaid is coming out against the Chicago Bulls. We will see them in action.
I thought that wasn't until January.
Was it January? I thought they said they were going to play them. Oh, wait, no. They're on the road. I'm an idiot. So it's January 31st.
Well, it doesn't matter. There are no road uniforms. Yep. That's just a construct, Dan.
I totally forgot.
The road uniforms don't exist anymore.
I was looking at the schedule as Chicago was coming up. I had Chicago in my head. They play the Bulls on January 31st. I had it as January 1st. Oh, well.
Yeah, so we have to wait a whole month.
So, you get a month before you can see anything else good.
Yeah. But anyway, it's been great talking to you. 2017, we're going to say goodbye. 2018, we're going to embrace with health and excellence and wish the same for the Portland Trailblazers.
And Blazers Edge Night.
Yes. Oh, yeah, Blazers Edge Night.
This is the big push, folks. The game's coming up here in a couple weeks, and this is where we need the most help. There are still a fair amount of tickets remaining that need to be scooped up for everybody to attend, for all 2,000 to have a chance to attend. So if you can, donate, please. The tickets range from $9 to $13. It's an awesome, awesome thing to be able to do, to be able to hand off just a couple of bucks to make it so a kid who wouldn't otherwise get a chance to go to one of these games gets a chance to go. If you have the ability, please do it. You can scroll down to the bottom of the podcast. You can on every single post, I believe, between now and Blazers Edge Night, there will be a link in the bottom going to Blazers Edge Night, so you can donate. If you have questions or if you have concerns, comments, whatever, you can reach out to any of the Blazers Edge people via Twitter, via email, blazersub@gmail.com, and they can help you out, help you get sorted. But if you do have the ability to make this happen, please do. There's also, you can go, there's the link also at the bottom that will allow you to purchase socks. The official Blazers Edge socks. Again, I've mentioned this many times as my lucky socks. They are awesome. It's a new design this year. $10, I believe, is what they are. And that'll help. That will, every pair you buy will be matched by a donation for a ticket for a lucky child, him, her, to get to go to a game. So it's a pretty cool situation no matter how you look at it. So if you have the ability to make it happen, please do.
Yeah, well put, Dan. Thanks everybody for joining us on the podcast. You can find me on Twitter at TCBBiggs. Dan, you want to tell people where to find you and take us out of here?
Yes, absolutely. You can find me on Twitter at DMarang, at DMARANG. You can also find me on non-game nights on Facebook.NBCS Northwest for the Blazers Outsiders at 7 o'clock. We'll have some more news concerning the Blazers Outside in the coming weeks. Other than that, we'll go ahead and wrap it up for here. Thanks for joining us, folks. This is the Blazers Edge podcast. You can find us on the Almighty Baller Podcast Network on iTunes. Go ahead and go to iTunes, like, subscribe, leave us a review. It's a huge, huge deal. So it allows us to be up there. So it allows us to generate money, which allows us to be able to continue to do these things. So if you can, please go do that. Like, subscribe, unsubscribe, do it all over again, and leave us all your reviews. Thanks for everything this year, guys. It's been a great 2017. Look forward to a great 2018. And as always, go Blazers.